Have you ever looked up at the night sky and felt like you were speaking a language no one else could hear? You look around, everyone seems busy chasing noise while you, somehow, are tuned into silence. There's this quiet ache in your heart, an awareness that you see the world differently. And sometimes, that awareness feels like loneliness. But I want you to remember something profound. You are not lonely because you are lost. You are lonely because you are found. You see, the chosen ones, those who are awakened, who sense a deeper rhythm beneath the chaos of life, often walk a solitary road. Not because they are meant to suffer, but because their vision stretches beyond the ordinary. You start to notice what others ignore, the beauty in stillness, the meaning in pain, the lessons in every ending. You begin to outgrow conversations that once felt exciting. You crave truth more than entertainment, depth more than distraction. That's when life begins to test you. Not to break you, but to see if you are ready to walk with your light, even when no one else can see it. When you feel alone, life is whispering, "Come closer to me." Solitude is not punishment, it's preparation. The great souls who changed the world, Rumi, Buddha, Christ, Lao Tzu, all walked through valleys of silence before they spoke words that moved mountains. The universe hides you in quiet places before revealing your purpose. It isolates you not to diminish you, but to amplify your connection with something greater than the human crowd, the divine. You don't fit in because you weren't meant to. You were designed to stand out, to see further, to awaken others by first awakening yourself. When the chosen one feels alone, it is not a curse. It's the calling card of transformation. It's the signal that your frequency has shifted, that your soul is preparing to lead, not follow. And the truth is, every lonely moment is an invitation to fall deeper in love with your purpose, your growth, and your own sacred company. So the next time you sit in silence and feel that ache of separation, smile softly. That feeling isn't emptiness. It's expansion. It's the space where your higher self is being born. Remember, stars are seen only in the dark. And if you feel alone, perhaps it's because you are meant to shine where others have yet to look. When a person begins to awaken, life takes on a strange and mysterious texture. What once felt solid begins to dissolve, and what once seemed meaningless begins to shine with quiet importance. It's during this period of transformation that the feeling of loneliness often appears, not as a punishment, but as an initiation. The path of awareness has never been crowded. It winds through valleys of silence and peaks of clarity, and only those who have begun to listen to the whisper of their own soul can truly hear its call. Loneliness, in this sense, is not about being without others. It is about learning to be with yourself in a way that transcends dependence, validation, and noise. It's a deep inner classroom where the soul learns its greatest lessons. The chosen ones, those who feel deeply and see clearly, experience this phase as a kind of separation from the familiar. You might find that the laughter you once shared with others no longer carries the same spark. The conversations that used to excite you now feel shallow, and the dreams of the world, success, status, comparison, begin to lose their flavor. This shift is disorienting. It feels as though the ground is moving beneath your feet, as though you've been unplugged from the collective rhythm that everyone else seems to dance to. But that disconnection is sacred. It means you've begun to hear a different music, the rhythm of your own consciousness. Loneliness, then, becomes the sound of awakening. It's the quiet after the noise, the stillness where you start to meet your real self for the very first time. When you stand at this threshold, the world may not understand you. People might say you've changed, and they'll be right. You are changing in ways that they can't yet perceive. You are shedding layers of illusion, and as each layer falls away, you become lighter, freer, but also more aware of how few are walking beside you. This awareness can feel like loss, but in truth, it's liberation. You are being freed from the need for approval, from the compulsion to belong to something that no longer nourishes your growth. You are beginning to belong to something higher, your truth. And truth, by its nature, stands alone before it becomes a beacon for others. Think of it this way: when a seed is planted, it must go underground before it can sprout. In that dark soil, it cannot see the sun. It is surrounded by stillness, unseen, and yet, that is where life begins. The seed doesn't curse the darkness, it uses it. It surrenders to the process. The same happens when you are called to higher awareness. Loneliness is your soil. It's the fertile space where your roots grow deep, where your inner foundation strengthens. Every quiet evening, every unanswered message, every moment where you feel unseen, these are not voids. They are invitations to deepen. The soul learns to trust its own company there, to draw nourishment from within instead of from the outside world. In this stage, something miraculous starts to unfold. You begin to realize that the ache of loneliness is not emptiness. It's space. Space that the universe created so that something new could be born inside you. If you fill that space too quickly, with distractions, relationships, noise, you interrupt the process of transformation. But if you allow it to remain open, if you sit quietly with that discomfort, you start to notice its wisdom. You start to hear the voice that has always been there, but was drowned out by the clamor of daily life. It's the voice of your higher self, speaking softly but steadily: you are enough. You are whole. You are guided. This awareness brings a subtle but powerful education. Loneliness teaches you emotional self-sufficiency. It teaches you how to be your own companion, how to draw peace from silence, and how to connect with others from fullness instead of need. It dissolves the illusion that happiness is somewhere out there, waiting to be found in another person, a place, or a future moment. It teaches that happiness is a frequency that must be tuned from within. In this way, loneliness becomes the most honest teacher of love, not the love that clings, but the love that radiates effortlessly because it is no longer seeking. As you walk further on this path, you begin to see that every soul must go through this corridor of solitude before it can truly serve the world. Those who bring light must first learn to be comfortable in darkness. Those who wish to heal must first meet their own wounds without flinching. And those who want to lead must first learn to follow the quiet guidance of their inner being. Loneliness is the training ground for these lessons. It shapes your empathy, your patience, your compassion. Because when you've known the silence of your own heart, you begin to understand the silence of others. You begin to see beyond words, beyond appearances, into the quiet pain and beauty that lives inside every person. In time, what once felt like loneliness transforms into peaceful solitude. You no longer fear being alone, because you've discovered that you are never truly alone. There's a presence that walks with you. Call it consciousness, spirit, or simply awareness. You begin to feel connected not to crowds, but to creation itself. You see divinity in the sunrise, in the laughter of a child, in the stillness of the trees. The same intelligence that breathes life into the universe breathes through you. The loneliness that once felt like separation now feels like union. You realize that being chosen doesn't mean being above anyone. It means being attuned to the sacredness that runs through everything. So when loneliness visits, don't resist it. Welcome it as a teacher. Sit with it, study it, and let it educate your soul. Because hidden inside that stillness is your transformation. Loneliness is not the void before the awakening. It is the awakening itself. The first taste of the freedom that comes from realizing that everything you seek already lives within you. Solitude is one of the most misunderstood teachers in life. For most people, being alone is something to avoid, a void to fill, a sign of emptiness or rejection. Yet, solitude is not a punishment handed out by the universe. It is an invitation to meet the self without disguise. When you are constantly surrounded by noise, by other people's voices, opinions, and expectations, your own inner guidance becomes faint. But when life begins to remove those external distractions, when relationships fade, when routines crumble, when silence grows louder, it is not abandoning you. It is preparing you. Solitude is the classroom where the soul learns how to listen again. In the quiet spaces of solitude, the ego begins to lose its power. The ego thrives on comparison and validation. It needs an audience. It wants to be liked, admired, respected. But solitude removes the audience. It strips you down to your essence and asks, "Who are you when there is no one to applaud you?" This question is not easy to face. Many run from it. They fill the silence with entertainment, with endless scrolling, with plans and noise, because the truth of themselves can feel uncomfortable. But those who accept solitude, who sit in that sacred stillness long enough, begin to see that underneath all the roles, the identities, and the masks, there is something unchanging. A presence, an awareness, a steady light. That discovery is the beginning of true freedom. Solitude prepares the soul for purpose, because it teaches discernment. When you are constantly surrounded by others, it's easy to lose sight of what thoughts are truly yours and which ones you've absorbed. You might chase goals that were never meant for you simply because they were popular or applauded. But in solitude, you begin to hear the quiet whisper of your authentic calling. You start to feel which direction expands you and which one contracts you. You become more sensitive to what feels right rather than what merely looks right. This inner alignment is the foundation of all great purpose. Without solitude, purpose remains clouded by imitation. With solitude, it becomes crystal clear. There is a reason why every great transformation in nature happens in silence. A caterpillar enters the cocoon alone. Seeds break open in the dark. Even the dawn begins quietly before it floods the sky with light. Solitude is the human version of that cocoon. It's the phase where old patterns dissolve and new strength forms. It's uncomfortable because transformation always is. The mind will resist, saying, "This silence is too heavy, this emptiness too vast." But within that discomfort lies growth. Solitude stretches your emotional muscles. It teaches you resilience, patience, and self-reliance. It helps you realize that peace is not something you wait for, it's something you cultivate. When you start to value solitude, you stop seeing it as time wasted. You begin to treat it as sacred space. You might sit quietly by yourself in the morning, not to escape the world but to tune yourself to it. You notice how stillness clears the fog in your thoughts. You feel more present, more centered, more in tune with the rhythm of life. You begin to observe your emotions rather than being consumed by them. This awareness transforms the way you move through the world. You stop reacting and start responding. You stop chasing and start attracting. Solitude gives you mastery over your own inner climate. It's in solitude that the soul becomes strong enough to carry light into the world. When you can sit with yourself, and not need to be entertained or distracted, you gain a quiet power. You become rooted. The winds of opinion no longer sway you, because you have found something steadier within. People who have not known solitude often crumble when faced with uncertainty or disapproval. But those who have walked through silence know how to stand tall, even when misunderstood. They have been tempered by stillness, shaped by patience, and guided by a deeper intelligence that doesn't depend on external approval. Solitude also teaches compassion in a profound way. When you've spent time with your own thoughts and shadows, you stop judging others for theirs. You realize that everyone carries invisible battles. You start to see humanity through softer eyes. The solitude that once felt like separation becomes a bridge. It connects you more deeply with life. You learn that compassion doesn't come from trying to fix others, but from understanding them. And that understanding begins with understanding yourself. This preparation is not just spiritual, it's practical. Solitude increases creativity because it gives the mind room to breathe. It enhances intuition because it quiets the noise that drowns out subtle signals. It deepens emotional intelligence because it allows you to observe patterns within yourself. Every great inventor, artist, philosopher, or teacher has known the power of solitude. They retreated not to escape, but to recharge, to listen, to receive inspiration. What emerges from solitude is always richer, wiser, and more authentic. When you begin to embrace solitude, life feels less frantic. You stop grasping for constant connection and instead learn to enjoy conscious connection, the kind that's meaningful rather than habitual. You start to attract relationships that resonate with your higher frequency because you're no longer desperate for company. You're already whole. People sense that peace in you. They're drawn to it because it's rare in a world addicted to noise. Solitude is preparation because it creates space for inspiration, for intuition, for divine timing. The world often rushes to act, but those who have learned the rhythm of solitude know that everything unfolds in perfect order. They don't force, they flow. They trust that silence is not stagnation, it's incubation. In the stillness, ideas ripen, strength gathers, clarity sharpens. When it's time to move, their action carries weight because it's born from alignment, not impulse. To be alone is to be in the presence of the self, and the self is the meeting place between the human and the divine. When you recognize that, solitude ceases to be lonely. It becomes communion. You realize that the quiet you once feared is not emptiness. It is fullness. It is the sound of your soul remembering itself. And when the soul remembers who it is, it becomes ready to fulfill its purpose in the world, not as an echo of others, but as an original note in the grand symphony of existence. There comes a moment in every person's life when the familiar begins to feel too small. The conversations that once entertained no longer nourish. The ambitions that once seemed urgent begin to feel hollow. It's as though your inner world starts expanding while the outer world remains the same size, and suddenly, you no longer fit. This feeling is not a sign of arrogance or separation, it is a signal of evolution. When you begin to outgrow the world around you, it means that your consciousness has started to move beyond the limits that once defined you. Growth, by its nature, creates space between what you were and what you are becoming. Most people spend their lives trying to fit into molds, social expectations, family roles, professional identities. These molds give comfort and belonging, but they also confine. When awareness begins to rise, the soul starts to press against those walls. You might notice that you can no longer tolerate gossip, conflict, or meaningless striving. You might feel a pull towards stillness, truth, or creativity that others around you don't yet understand. That pull is not rebellion, it's remembrance. You are remembering what it means to live authentically, to move from the inside out rather than the outside in. The process of outgrowing your environment can be disorienting. You may look around and realize that the people you've always shared your life with don't quite resonate anymore. You still love them, but something has shifted. Their dreams may remain the same, but yours are changing shape. Their values may focus on status or success, while you find yourself drawn to peace, meaning, or service. This can lead to loneliness, but that loneliness is not a void, it's a bridge. It's the space between chapters, the sacred gap that allows the new version of yourself to take form before it meets new resonance. Think of a hermit crab. It lives in a shell, and as it grows, that shell becomes too tight. If it refuses to leave, it will die of restriction. So it must abandon its old home and search for a larger one. For a while, it's vulnerable, exposed to the elements, unprotected. But that period of exposure is necessary for survival. The same is true for the soul. When you outgrow the old patterns of thought, the old relationships, the old definitions of success, there's a time when you have no shell. You haven't yet found the new environment that fits your expanded self. It's uncomfortable, even frightening, but it's sacred. It's the period of spiritual molting, the shedding of identities that no longer serve your growth. Outgrowing the world means learning to live without constant validation. The approval of others no longer feels as essential as it once did. You stop needing to be understood because you understand yourself. You stop explaining your choices because you trust your intuition. That shift is subtle but powerful. It's the movement from dependence to self-reliance, from imitation to authenticity. Education in the truest sense is not memorizing what others have said. It's learning to listen to your own inner guidance. Growth is not about rejecting others, it's about aligning with truth, even if it means walking a quieter path. When you begin to outgrow the world, you also start to perceive its illusions more clearly. You see how much of society runs on fear, fear of being left behind, fear of not being enough, fear of uncertainty. You recognize how much energy people spend maintaining appearances. And in that awareness, something within you softens. You stop competing, you stop chasing, and you start creating. You begin to realize that peace is not found by controlling the outer world, but by mastering your inner state. You notice that joy arises not from what you acquire, but from how deeply you appreciate what already is. This phase of expansion can be misunderstood by others. They might think you've become distant or strange. But it's not distance, it's depth. You are diving deeper into yourself, and that journey inward sometimes looks like withdrawal. You're not turning away from people, you're turning toward truth. And in time, that truth will make you more compassionate, not less. When you've outgrown the noise, you can truly hear. When you've stepped beyond the crowd, you can truly see. The perspective gained in solitude eventually becomes a gift you bring back to the world. There is a quiet courage required to grow beyond what's familiar. It means letting go of comfort and entering uncertainty. The mind resists this because it craves stability, but the soul thrives on expansion. It understands that growth always requires a letting go. The flower must break through the soil, the bird must leave the nest, the wave must surrender to the tide. In each case, the act of outgrowing is an act of trust. Trust that something larger awaits beyond the known. The same trust is needed when your awareness expands beyond the limits of your current reality. Education in its deepest form is evolution. The more you learn about yourself, the more the old paradigms lose their hold. You begin to question why you believe what you believe, why you behave the way you do, why you seek what you seek. This questioning is not rebellion, it's inquiry. It's the mind waking up to the fact that much of what it has been taught to pursue does not lead to fulfillment. Outgrowing the world means becoming a student of truth instead of a follower of convention. It means valuing wisdom over knowledge, being overdoing, purpose over performance. Eventually, what once felt like loss becomes liberation. You stop mourning what no longer fits and start celebrating the space that's been created. That space is where creativity, clarity, and intuition enter. It's where new opportunities arise, where new people vibrate at the same frequency. You realize that the world you've outgrown was not a mistake, it was a stage. And that stage brought you to the awareness you now hold. Every limitation, every frustration, every moment of alienation was part of your education. They were the signs that your soul was expanding beyond the boundaries of its previous form. So when you feel that pull away from the familiar, when the world you once loved starts to feel too small, don't resist it. You are not breaking apart, you are breaking open. The discomfort of expansion is the price of freedom. And freedom is the natural state of a soul that has remembered its true size. Outgrowing the world around you doesn't mean rejecting it. It means finally realizing that you were never meant to be confined by it. You are not leaving behind life, you are stepping more deeply into it. There is a sacred rhythm to the unfolding of life, and it is often misunderstood by those who live only on the surface of things. The most profound transformations do not happen in the spotlight, they happen in silence. The divine does not reveal its greatest creations in the noise of applause, but in the quiet of solitude. Just as the seed grows unseen beneath the soil, and the dawn begins before the world wakes, the universe prepares its chosen ones in the hidden chambers of stillness. This concealment is not a denial of destiny, it is the process by which destiny matures. The divine hides great souls in silence before revealing them because silence refines, purifies, and strengthens in ways that visibility never could. When life grows quiet, when things seem to pause and the momentum of the outer world fades, the mind often panics. It assumes that nothing is happening, It wants progress to be visible, success to be measurable, and purpose to be validated by others. But the universe operates by different laws. It values depth over display, essence over expression, and preparation over performance. The silence you find yourself in is not the absence of movement. It is the sacred space where invisible roots are forming. It is where you are being trained in awareness, patience, and trust. Just as a musician practices scales before stepping onto the stage, the soul rehearses stillness before it speaks its truth into the world. Every great teacher, artist, and thinker in history has known this silence. There is a period when the world does not recognize your gifts, when your efforts seem unnoticed, and when your path feels uncertain. That is not failure, that is formation. The divine does its finest work behind closed doors. It removes distractions, tests your dedication, and polishes your intentions. It asks, will you still follow your purpose when no one is watching? Will you still create, love, serve, and believe when there is no recognition waiting at the end? This is the kind of education that silence offers. It teaches you to move not from ego but from essence. In the quiet, you begin to notice what truly drives you. Without the noise of external approval, you come face to face with your inner motivations. You learn whether your desire to grow comes from fear or from love. You discover whether your actions are rooted in service or in self-image. The silence strips away illusions. It reveals the difference between ambition and calling, between effort and alignment. It shows you that not every movement is progress, and not every pause is loss. In truth, the stillness you resist is the womb of creation. It is the gestation period of the soul. The divine hides you because exposure too early can destroy what is meant to blossom later. Imagine taking a loaf of bread from the oven before it has risen, or pulling a butterfly from its cocoon before its wings have formed. The result is fragility, incompleteness. The same is true for the soul. When you are kept in silence, it is not because you are unworthy. It is because you are being radied. The universe is aligning conditions, shaping your character, and building the strength required to carry the light you are meant to bring. If you were revealed too soon, the weight of visibility might crush what silence is still cultivating within you. In these quiet seasons, frustration can easily arise. You might feel unseen, unheard, or forgotten. But it's in these very moments that the soul learns to draw its energy not from validation but from vitality. You begin to find joy in the process instead of the result. You learn to trust timing instead of forcing outcomes. You realize that the purpose of waiting is not punishment but preparation. Each silent season strengthens the muscles of faith. It teaches you that your worth does not depend on recognition, and your power does not depend on visibility. The oak tree does not grow overnight. It builds its roots deep into the unseen earth, so that when the storms come, it stands unshaken. Your solitude is doing the same for you. Silence also refines your perception. When you no longer have the constant hum of the world to distract you, you begin to sense subtler truths. You hear the language of intuition, the soft promptings of insight, the quiet reassurance of inner guidance. You realize that answers are not always loud, often, they arrive as gentle awareness. The divine communicates through this silence, not through thunderous declarations, but through the still, steady knowing that arises when the mind becomes calm. To learn from silence is to learn the language of the universe itself. This hidden stage is also where humility is born. When you are unseen by others, you learn to act without expectation. You begin to understand that greatness is not about being above others but about being aligned with something higher. In silence, you see that you are not the creator of your gifts, but the vessel through which creation expresses itself. You stop trying to prove and start allowing. You surrender the idea of control and begin to trust the intelligence that governs all things. This surrender is the final preparation before revelation. When the time comes, and the divine decides to reveal what has been growing within you, it will happen naturally, effortlessly. You will not need to announce it or demand attention. Just as the flower doesn't advertise its bloom, your purpose will unfold with quiet authority. People will notice the peace in your presence, the clarity in your words, the authenticity in your actions. They will think it happened suddenly, but you will know it was forged in years of stillness. The hidden work will speak through you, and the silence that once felt isolating will become the source of your wisdom. So when you find yourself in that quiet space, when doors seem closed, when progress slows, when you feel invisible, remember that this is not a pause in your story. It is the part of the story that gives everything else meaning. The divine hides great souls in silence, so that when they emerge, they do not seek the light, they become it. The quiet years are not wasted, they are sacred. They are where strength replaces doubt, where clarity replaces confusion, and where love replaces fear. The silence is not your exile, it is your initiation. And one day, when you finally step into the world, you will understand that everything the silence took away, it replaced with something far greater, your unshakable connection to the divine rhythm that beats beneath all of creation. There comes a time in every person's journey when the world around them begins to lose its familiar shape. People drift away, plans dissolve, and what once felt certain becomes vague and undefined. In these moments, a deep loneliness often arises. It feels as though life has withdrawn its warmth and left you standing in a vast emptiness. Yet this feeling is not a sign of abandonment, it is an invitation. It is life's way of whispering that something within you is being called to expand. Feeling alone is not the absence of connection. It is the beginning of alignment. It means you are being guided toward a new way of being, one that depends less on outer attachments and more on inner awareness. Loneliness, when understood, is one of the greatest teachers. It strips away distractions and compels you to look inward. The human mind is trained to seek belonging outside itself, to find comfort in approval, attention, or companionship. But when life removes these external anchors, it is not taking something from you, it is teaching you to stand on your own spiritual foundation. It is teaching you that peace is not given by others, but cultivated within. You are being guided to discover that the same presence you once searched for in people and situations already exists inside you, waiting to be remembered. In loneliness, the ego first cries out. It tells you that you are being left behind, that something is wrong, that you must rush to fill the emptiness. But if you resist that panic, if you sit quietly with the ache instead of trying to escape it, a subtle transformation begins. The ache turns into awareness. You start to see that this aloneness is not empty at all, it is full of intelligence. It is the sacred space where your intuition grows stronger, your sensitivity deepens, and your perception sharpens. In that space, the noise of the world fades, and the voice of your higher self becomes audible. The very feeling you thought was isolation reveals itself as connection to something greater than the human crowd. Connection to the divine rhythm that breathes through all existence. When you feel alone, life is aligning you with a higher vibration. It is adjusting your inner compass so that you begin to resonate with truth instead of illusion. This process can feel uncomfortable because you are shedding layers of attachment, old identities, beliefs, and dependencies. You may notice that the things which once comforted you no longer satisfy. The conversations that once distracted you now feel meaningless. The relationships that once defined you begin to loosen their grip. This is not loss, it is cleansing. You are being freed from what no longer serves your expansion. The loneliness you feel is the silence that follows the end of one chapter and precedes the beginning of another. If you look at nature, you'll see this pattern everywhere. The tide must recede before it returns in fullness. The moon disappears before it waxes bright again. The seed must split apart in darkness before it bursts into life. Loneliness is that dark soil for the human spirit. It's the space in which you are broken open so that new light can enter. You may not see what is growing yet, but beneath the surface, your roots are reaching deeper into truth. Every moment of solitude is strengthening your connection to your own essence, making you less dependent on external validation and more attuned to the steady guidance of your inner being. As you begin to accept this aloneness, it changes form. What once felt heavy begins to feel spacious. The silence that used to intimidate you starts to feel peaceful. You begin to realize that the same energy that animates the stars is also breathing within you. You sense that you are never truly separate from life. You are part of an infinite consciousness that is always supporting, guiding, and expressing through you. This awareness is alignment. It's the moment when loneliness turns into communion. The stillness that once felt like exile becomes a sacred sanctuary, a place where you meet yourself as you really are. When this realization settles in, your relationship with others transforms as well. You no longer seek people out of need but out of love. You connect from fullness instead of emptiness. You stop grasping for attention because you have learned to give attention to your own soul. You stop demanding understanding because you have found acceptance within yourself. This shift creates authentic relationships, connections that are not built on dependency, but on mutual growth. The loneliness that once frightened you becomes the foundation of deeper connection, because now you meet others not as a seeker of comfort, but as a giver of light. Feeling alone, then, is not a curse but a compass. It points you inward, where your true power resides. It reminds you that no person, circumstance, or possession can give you what you already are. It pushes you to remember that you are not just a body walking through a world of other bodies. You are consciousness itself, temporarily experiencing form. When you live from that awareness, the fear of being alone disappears. You realize that presence never leaves you, only your attention does. When attention returns inward, loneliness transforms into serenity. There will always be moments in life when silence comes, when people go, when things end. But instead of seeing these moments as abandonment, you can see them as alignment. They are gentle corrections from the universe, guiding you back to your center. They remind you that everything temporary must fall away so that the eternal can be felt. Each wave of loneliness is a spiritual reminder you are being fine, tuned to the frequency of your own truth. So when you find yourself sitting in the quiet, with no one to call and nothing to do, don't rush to fill the space. Listen, that emptiness is not void, it is vibration. It is the hum of existence itself, feel it. Allow it to teach you that you are never disconnected. You are always held, always guided, always part of something vast and loving. The loneliness that once felt like separation is actually your return to unity. It is life's way of preparing you to live love and lead from wholeness. For only those who have discovered peace in their own company can ever bring peace into the company of others. When you stand back and see the pattern in all these teachings, a single truth begins to emerge. Life has never been trying to punish you through loneliness, isolation, or silence. It has been preparing you. Every moment you felt alone was a call inward. Every season of stillness was a sacred initiation, and every feeling of separation was an invitation to rediscover the unity that has always lived within you. The chosen ones do not walk the easy path, because their purpose is not ordinary. They are sculpted by solitude, shaped by reflection, and strengthened by the spaces in between. The loneliness you once resisted has been refining you. It has been teaching you how to listen deeply, how to see clearly, and how to love without conditions. Solitude has been training your heart to find peace without noise, to recognize the divine rhythm beneath the surface of all things. And as you've outgrown the old versions of yourself, your beliefs, your attachments, your fears, you've made room for something larger to unfold. That space is not emptiness, it is readiness. It is where your purpose begins to take form. The silence once frightened you has become the ground of your wisdom. The absence of validation has revealed the presence of truth. And the ache of separation has awakened your connection to something eternal. You are not being hidden to be forgotten, you are being hidden to be ripened. The divine works quietly, and it works perfectly. When the time comes for your light to emerge, it will not be with effort or noise. It will simply radiate, because that is what light does when it finally remembers itself. So when you look back at your journey, remember this: the loneliness, the waiting, the stillness, all of it was love in disguise. It was life preparing you to become a vessel for something greater than your own understanding. You were never abandoned, you were being aligned. And now, as you rise from the silence, you carry with you the wisdom that only solitude can teach. The understanding that peace is not found in the world, but brought into it through a soul that has learned to be whole on its own.